Good morning, ladies. Good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. Hope you're doing really well. And I just want to welcome you to week number 7 of the Reclaim the Rebel Academy. And today you'll notice that I am joined by a very, very special guest, Sand Symes. Sand is a modern medicine woman and ancestral breathwork expert, and she is going to be leading the session today and talking about how all of the topics that we've been discussing in the Reclaim the Rebel Academy are really an extension of some of the things that she works with and some of the energetics, and really are a part of our overall life journey and soul journey to feeling good in our bodies, reclaiming our power, and ultimately, living the life that we are put on this planet to live. So, Sand, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. Sand is my British sister. So take it away, Sand. Who are you and what's your story?
Thanks, Lizzie. Hi, ladies. And if any of you appear even in our time together here on Monday, it'd be lovely to have you here. And as we know, everything's interconnected. So whenever you're watching this video, I want to say, first of all, I deeply, deeply honor the journey that each of you are on, for the journey that had you feel the yes and find the yes to be in a program like this with Lizzie, because many are called, many of us find that intuitive nudge, but then very few of us actually take action and move through and say yes. And when we say yes, as you're finding in this program with Lizzie, your life starts to change little by little, nudge by nudge. And this beautiful intuition, which I know you've been talking about with Lizzie, grows. And we get to trust, to learn as women to trust ourselves again, trust our body, trust our emotions, trust our mental capacity, and trust that spiritual part of us that is the intuition. It's our superpower as women. So Lizzie's introduced me already. So my name is Sand Symes. And as a shamanic practitioner of over 22 years, I've been a shamanic practitioner. And what does that mean? Very simply, it means that as a shamanic practitioner, we walk on this earth, we live on this earth, we think on this earth, we take actions on this earth from a place, a deep-rooted place that everything is connected, and or interconnected, the interconnectedness of life. And as a woman, I am also a mum of 2 grown-up children. I have a son at 34, my daughter 33. I have 2 grandbabies. So I know that 2 of you, I think it's two of you, are mums with young children. So I remember those days, and I was a single mum as well. So I know what it felt like to be a single mom, tried to be 2 parents and 5 aunties and 6 uncles and 10 grandparents to the children there, whilst at the same time putting myself through university as a social worker at that time, and wanting to be in deep, deep service to people who basically didn't have a voice. Why was I deeply, deeply moved to work with people who didn't have a voice? And it's a wounds to wisdom story, which many of us have. Something might have happened to us as a child or in our younger years that was traumatic at the time and challenging at the time. But on a soul level, we came in to have that journey so that we could have the opportunity to alchemize, transcend those wounds into wisdom. So wounds into wisdom. So as a child, lived in a Lizzie knows my hometown in Bolton, which is in northwest of England, and it was cotton mills and coal mining. It was a very industrial town. And in my family, my father was so stressed, incredibly stressed, and we lived under the fear of that authoritative figure with my father, who was emotional and physically abusive to his wife and to his children. So we grew up in that kind of environment. Needless to say, 3 of his children, myself and 2 of my sisters, ended up in social work, which is a wounded healer path. It's kind of a notorious wounded healer path. So anything that happens to us as a child wounded, we tend to want, I don't ever want this to happen to anybody else. And so we move along the wounded healer pathway, which I did for many, many years. As a little girl, I had the ability to see energies. So one would call that a seer's ability until the age of 7. And everything around people, I could see energy, I could see shape. Sometimes I could see the shape of a human, but I thought that was the world. And then at the age of 7, playing outside with my friend, it was washing day, all the sheets were on the line. So as kids, we would run through the sheets, laughing. And this little boy joined us and he was laughing and we were laughing. And then we got called in for tea. And her mum, my friend's mum, as we were sitting down for tea, I said, "Who's that little boy that we were playing with?" And Barbara, can imagine, with 2 7-year-old little girls sitting down at the tea table. She was like, "What little boy?" And I said, "The little boy, that little boy was." There was no little boy. I said, "There was a little boy. There was no little boy." So then in my 7-year-old indignation, I described him and I said, "The little boy with the grey trousers and the little red top and the grey thing." The next thing, my hair, I was being dragged off the table, dragged off the chair, dragged the streets to my parents' house, where Barbara's mum accused me of going through her personal things. And it was the photograph of the little boy who'd had his school photographs done that day with those clothes on, the day that he died. So obviously people around me, my adults around me, didn't know that I was a seer. It wasn't, I wasn't brought up in a tribe, in a community with my grandmother and great grandmothers. I wasn't a shaman of a birth line lineage. I just came through with this particular gift. So I got a good beating. And so all of that just shut down, because what I learned later is any time the spiritual world feels that we are in danger of the connection with us, they will shut it down. So my life in that world got shut down. And I do remember, not clearly, but I remember enough to think for a while, the world kind of felt a little grey. And my mum used to say, "You used to say, it rains a lot here. It rained," because that I just assumed that it was the rain. It was dark, it kind of got a little darker. So fast forward to 1991, and then I started to have visitations from what is now known as the collective, the ancestors, capital T, capital A. And the ancestors came to me for every night for 5 years. And in that visitation, I never heard a word they said. I could see them, but I couldn't hear them. And I used to eventually I'd throw cushions or pillows or shoes or a handbag at them. I got so frustrated saying, "Why are you here? If you're not speaking to me, I need to know why you're here." I never felt scared. And it started off with one that stayed with me for about 6 or 7 months. And then it was like 3, and then it got to 8, and then it got to about 20, and then it was hundreds, and then it was thousands. And when you're seeing through those eyes again as a seer, there was no brick wall of my house. It was I just could see these thousands and thousands of beings that were there, and really up close and right at the foot of my bed. Never felt scared. My daughter, who was how old was my daughter at the time? My younger daughter at the time was about 6 or 7, and she stopped coming into my bedroom at night because she could hear me talking to somebody, and so that freaked her out a little bit. So that scared her a little bit, but there was no fear. That I knew there was no fear. And then I started my journey to find teachers who could help me to understand what was happening. And that's when my first teacher was a pagan teacher, and taught me all I needed to know about my own Celtic background and what my ancestry was about. Felt very strongly that this was an ancestral visitation. And then I moved and found my first teacher in shamanic practices in 1996. And in 1996, I realized through my beautiful teachers that I could not, it wasn't that they weren't speaking to me, it was that I couldn't hear them, because I needed to clear out this vessel, which in shamanic practices is called hollow bone. So get out of your own way. And it's in every spiritual endeavor. We've got to get out of the crazy ego mind, or the crazy thoughts, or the the childhood wounding or messaging or patterns that have been handed down in intergenerational trauma. It's an uncoiling or a releasing or a dissolving of a world that somebody else gave us the map of. So we've been living in somebody else's map of the world. So that started my journey, a deep journey of tipping out, and unlearning everything that I'd been taught about this world, about this 3D world, about everything really. Questioned a lot, didn't believe it, many times, argued a point, argued for my limitations, fought for my own egoic mind. It was a whole journey of discovery. And through that, it took about 7 years before I first could hear the whispers, the very soft whispers of spirit. And I say this, but this is my journey, Lizzie, and to the sisters that will be listening to this later. I say this because what I've learned is everybody can get access to the unseen world. Every one of us, because we all came in as soul. We all have intuition, which I understand from all the downloads that is literally, for women in particular, it's our bridge between this physical body and the non-physical realm. So that intuition to our own higher self, or the divine, God, spirit, Allah, Buddha, whatever we want to call this higher intelligence, our intuition is the very bridge. It's like the flute. We get played like a flute, spirit kind of like, we whistle and we get a nudge or a feeling. As women, we can walk into a room and feel, this feels off to me, or this person doesn't feel right. And every one of us have had many, many times in our life where we've had the nudge of spirit, the nudge of the inner self, the nudge of God, whatever word we want to use. And when we get that nudge, we've all had the experience when we followed through with that nudge, and it's been like, wow, and didn't expect that. Even if it's something as simple as thinking of a friend and calling him or her, and that person said, oh my God, I was only thinking about you today. We've had those kind of resonance, that feedback, that immediate feedback. And we've all had the experience when we didn't listen to those nudges, and how our life actually turned out when we didn't. We're opting for suffering. And that's what I've really realized more and more and more, that how we opt for suffering. So in this beautiful program that, with you all, you're learning that the trusting my physical body, trusting that I've got a deep wisdom inside, because the wisdom of our intuition absolutely lies inside of the body. And it lies outside in the everything, but it uses our body to wake itself up, or be awakened up to a deeper truth. And as a shamanic practitioner, that awakening had me, because at first I could go so far off into the stars. I could go so far away so quickly. And there was a part of me that didn't want to be here. And I had to face that part of me that didn't want to be here, which was a lot of my intergenerational trauma that had come through on not wanting to be on this earth, so escapism. And we can call that numbing out now. So, we numb out with all sorts of things. We all do, a Netflix, an extra glass of wine, the chocolates, or the shopping, or scrolling on, scrolling is the number one numbing, medicine, that the moon medicine that we carry. And inside of that, what are we avoiding in there? So I did a lot of work in that piece of me to do many times soul retrieval, to find that piece of me that didn't want to be here on this planet, wanted to get off because of the pain of the grief that was inside, that had been carried down in through abusive cycles that were in my family. So facing that. So for this work that you're all doing, it's in shamanic terms, it would be, you're all doing a soul retrieval. You're picking up pieces and parts of yourself that Lizzie is teaching here. Like there's a module and you're picking up this piece, and there's a second module and you pick up this piece. Trusting module, letting go module, wrapping your love around yourself is another module. And it's like your soul is using this physical body to retrieve parts of itself, so we get to be more whole and complete. So And that started my journey. Social work was my profession. I was a careers counsellor for many years before that, and then a social worker for many years, and working with women in all sorts of different ways where she didn't have her voice because I didn't have a voice as a child, wounds into wisdom. So marginalized groups were my thing, where anybody didn't have a voice. I wanted to give them their voice. And then fast forward, came to America 14 years ago, went into the rainforest, in the Ecuadorian rainforest immediately within a few months of being here. My husband worked for the Pachamama Alliance, who's got a beautiful, beautiful mission on this planet. And that's when we started working and being connected with the Achwa and the Shwa and the Zapara tribes in the southeast region of the Ecuadorian rainforest. So, and being validated by the first medicine man, first shaman there, when he said, why is she not using her medicines? If she doesn't use her medicines, they will implode. And my medicine woman sister, Luz Maria, said to me 13 years ago, so almost a year later, why are you not using your medicines? If you don't use your medicines, you will find dis-ease in your body. And then my Lakota teacher, the first time he realized I was a seer in the sweat lodge, and he said, you have to use your medicines because they're not yours. They were gifted to you. You're the custodian of them. So in a very short space of like 2 or 3 years, this strong confrontation. And the reason I spent so long not doing was I didn't feel worthy. I didn't have a color of skin that I felt that I'd associated conceptually, that you have to be a shamanic practitioner or a seer or a modern medicine woman. You have to be in this incredible lineage, and you have to be living in these exotic lands and be, anointed by some amazing person in your tribe. All of that was inside of me, which stopped me from claiming the very gifts I've got. And I know in this program, Lizzie, you're teaching the same thing with your sisters here, how it takes us so long to claim the very things that we came here to claim and have, that are through our lineage, that are through, it's a birthright, it's our legacy. But the journey that it takes of what will others think, and who the fuck do you think you are to think, woman from Bolton. I mean, come on, Bolton, shamanic practitioner from Bolton, really? Like, come on. Which is now, I realize why my soul incarnated there, to really break through that. If I can do it from Bolton, honey, anybody can claim a legacy. So in that soul retrieval, all of you, and Lizzie is like the teachers that I had, who's a sacred mirror to say, this is what I see, and this is what I see in you all. So you're all in a fantastic program with this incredible woman. So it's a long answer, kind of sharing some of that journey and hopefully weaving it into what's happening here in your program.
I absolutely love that. I love your story, and I really appreciate you sharing, because there was so much there that I want to ask you about. But some of that I could feel how what feels very kind of personal is actually very, very widespread, especially among women. Those stories of, I'm not capable, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. Like, well, I'm not the type of person to be fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we carry as this lead weight on our backs. And until we let that go, it's really preventing us from reclaiming that those kind of pieces of ourselves. Because the truth is that we are already whole. We've just got to realize that and sort of reclaim those pieces and go, oh yeah, I am really awesome. I am beautiful. I am, powerful. And that relates to what you were saying as well, is realizing that you had that power within you all along. It's kind of like those superhero movies where, the hero goes through their journey and then they go, oh, I had the power all along. It really is that. And so I wanted to also ask you, you mentioned going through these journeys and how some of those stories that led on your back kind of for so long could have easily led you down into disease. It held you back in terms of your gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the biggest thing that you found kind of manifested in terms of holding on to the shit that wasn't serving you? what was the kind of stuff that really sort of manifested in the physical reality of your life that kind of held you back and you were able to let go of, and how did you let go of that? No, that's the wrong question.
No, that's great. There's a few instances. There's a lot of instances in my life, but I'm being prompted by my collective ancestors to share this particular story. So at the age of 11, excuse me, and I don't think I know you didn't do the 11 plus, Lizzie, because you're a lot younger than I am. And it finished the year after I took the 11 plus. So I definitely know you didn't sit it. But in the UK, if you might remember, Lizzie, there was an exam called the 11 plus, which you all sat this exam at the age of 10 or 11, which would determine which high school you went to. So we were in the last year of primary school, so 10, 11 years old, and sitting an exam, whether you went to, which determined whether you went to the grammar school, which is for the, for the kids who passed the exam, or the high school for the kids who didn't pass the exam. Excuse me. Excuse me. So I sat the exam very confident, super smart kid. My dad was a school teacher. My dad was a math teacher. And we 5 bright kids, right? So we're very poor, but we were 5 bright kids. So I sat this exam. And then when we sat waiting for the results, and for some reason, I've always had S as my last surname. I was Smethurst as my my maiden name, and I married Stott, my first husband, and then I'm Symes. So I don't know. Go figure. So they were reading the names out, obviously, and they did it in alphabetical order. And I was waiting, sat on the top table, in high school. I'm 10 years old. My birthday was in May, so I'm 10. Most of my friends were 11 by that time, hence the 11 plus. And I'm sat waiting, and all my friends were being told which school they were going to. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to the grammar school with my friends. It's great. And out came the name, Sand Symes, Sharples High. And that trauma that came into my field was huge at 10 years old. So my body took this piece of news shockingly. It was a shock that came into my system. And I've studied trauma for 30 years now. So I really can speak very expertly in what was happening at that time. I had no idea when I was 10. I just held my chin went. I was holding my shit together at 10 years old. My body got super hot. I started sweating. My whole body went into a trauma response. Held myself together to not burst into tears in front of everybody. And everybody looked at me, because I was a popular kid in school, even at 10. And it was shocking that I was going to a high school. So, and the top table was in this, powerful corner and things. So I remember it felt to me anyway, that every kid went and like, wow. And so all of the projection energetically came into the space. So I was reeling with that, and I was like, this is shaking. My body went into full trauma response. And then they carried on writing the names, and then it was break. They were like, okay, it's break time now. So everybody who's going to this school, coming to this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner. So I went to the bathroom, and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed in the bathroom. 2 of my girlfriends came with me, and they said, "This must be a mistake. They said it wrong. This has got to be a mistake. There's no way that you're." So it was this whole thing. And then I left school, and my mum and dad had gone to the cinema that night, and it was peeing it down with rain after school. And instead of going home, I had to go and be with my mum. And I was like, I'm still crying now. And the message I got, the concept that I got at that time, God, I've worked on this stuff for so long. The thing that I got at that time was, you're stupid. So that was my cross to bear. I was stupid. When I was younger, as a child in my formative years, having that level of abuse from my father in the house, I was unlovable and not good enough. So the 2 pains of our human existence, like, whatever our story is, will fall down into those 2 pits of, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. And I split into both of these pits. I'm not good enough, not lovable. So the 10-year-old got ignited in the I'm not good enough pond again. So that came in again, like this 10-year-old. So So I told my mum and dad, mum and dad came out, and I sat outside the cinema in the pouring rain for about an hour and a half, like just pissing it down rain, just in my misery, because that was what I deserved, and somehow I deserved this. So I carried that story, and I went to high school. I was in the top sets for everything. My dad, because he was a teacher, he went to the education board, and he was like, "You've made a mistake. I'm a teacher. This is my daughter. All my kids are clever. What is going on?" And of course, they have to draw a line somewhere. So that the line, it's like, we've only got so many places in these schools. So after that, we have to draw a line. And my name was the third name under the line. But it was my karma. It was my soul journey, right? I had to do this one. So how did I change? So I went to high school. When I went to my careers guidance counselor interview at 15 years old with my little piece of paper, sweated because this woman is going to save my life. They're going to, I'm going to get out of Bolton. I'm going to leave. I'm going to do these great things. And I went into her interview, and to link this, I'm kind of linking these stories, went into her interview, and she had this blue rinse hair, glasses on a chain. To me, she looked about 150 years old. She might have only been 30 or something, but I was 15. She looked super old. And she sat me down, and then she put her glasses on the end of her nose, and she said, and she kind of looked, and she went, "Okay." And I gave her this grotty piece of paper. She found my file, and she said, "Oh, you want to be an actress?" And I was like, yes. And she laughed, and she went, and she pulled this, she was a better actress than I would ever be. She pulled this handkerchief out of her frilly black blouse. She was static. She was like, "Oh my God." She was like, "Oh my God." Putting this with that handkerchief to her eyes. She went, and then she went, with her glasses, she went, "Let's get our feet firmly on the ground now, shall we, dearie?" And started making these notes. There was my dream. I would never have made it ever as an actress, because my first rejection completely. And again, the intergenerational trauma. So I am a child who's got anxious attachment. I'm a child that is already feeling inadequate. My unworthiness is just as big as, the universe. And so here comes this woman, completely validates all of that. So I'm not going anywhere. So she said, "Oh, I think we'll go to secretarial school, because you're here in a high school. You can't go to university, because you can't do your A levels because you're in a high school, even if you're in the top." So she told me all the things I couldn't do, and then pointed me to secretarial school. And I left that, and again, back to my 10-year-old disbelief. So I got trauma response again at 14 of I wasn't going to have all the things I wanted and I dreamed of. After being in drama and doing all the school plays for 3 years. So she devastated me. Fast forward, I'm now a young mum. I'm a single mum with 2 gorgeous children. And I started volunteering at a local youth club. And it was like, I want to make a difference for young people. I never want young people to have the experiences that I had. And I want to believe in them. So I went and made an appointment at the local careers council service, local careers guidance council, had an adult careers interview with this beautiful woman, Maureen Knight. And she said, "So what do you want to do? What do you love?" And I said, "I want to work with young people." And she said, great. What are your qualifications? Which university did you go to? I'm now 29 years old. And I said, "I didn't go to university. I went to a high school." And she said, "But you could have still gone to university." And I went, "Oh, my careers advisor told me I couldn't go." Anyway, so we had this conversation, and then she's talking, and I said, "Maureen, how do I do the job you're doing?" And she said, "Oh, my darling, you need a degree." In that moment, I kid you not, David Elliott is walking past, this guy, never forget the name, walking past, and he stopped and went, "Maureen, no, Manchester University have they've just opened their doors. If Sand wants to be a careers guidance counsellor because she's a mature applicant, if she passes an entrance exam and the interviews and a psychometric test, if she passes those, she might get in." I lit up like a fucking Christmas tree on steroids. And I was like, "I'm going to do it. Let's do it." And Maureen going, "Oh my God, let's do it." And we did it. And I passed the psychometric test, passed the assignment, had my interview with the head of Manchester City Careers Guidance Council, the careers service in Manchester. And he told my story for years. And he said, This woman came in, she was 29 years old, and she was crying in the interview. And she said, if you don't let me on this course, I brought my tent, it's in the back of my car, and I'm going to park my car, and pitch my tent on your car park until you give me a place on this course, because I will be the best fucking careers advisor you've ever had. And I was.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness, what a fantastic
long story.
Oh, just so inspiring. And so what I'm hearing is, it was that drive and that commitment to yourself and what your soul contract that made the difference.
Yeah. And having children, when I looked in the eyes of my children, my firstborn Daniel, and then Natalie, my children, the love for these children was my biggest. That's what ignited something. That was my first igniter. Is I want so much, not just the better life from the way that from my childhood was materialistically or emotionally, but I just wanted more. I wanted them to always know that whatever their dreams were, they would have somebody that would believe in them.
That's so powerful. And I think, we've got this, your favorite. And I think, children are just such a great mirror and enabler for us to be more kind to ourselves, for us to believe in ourselves, and for us to go for it.
Yeah.
And to say, screw those old stories.
Yeah.
They're not mine.
Right.
And to start to give those back. So I'm sure along the way, some of those limiting beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, I'm sure that they did crop up. But because you had that strong sense of purpose, it's much easier to move through that.
Yeah. And the place where we, as again another shamanic practicing term, is a vision quest. It's like we all have a vision, and we're all questing for that vision. And it doesn't have to be a big vision. It doesn't have to be a universal vision. It's just your vision for your soul, and it's another way of saying the vision for your own life. And so we're all picking up, as we were saying before, we're picking up pieces of ourselves, which is soul retrieval, to remind ourselves ultimately we are already whole and complete, like you so beautifully said, Lizzie. And then the other part is the vision doesn't come in one big, it doesn't come like boom, that's it. It's in one kind. It's like the soul retrieval. You get pieces of it. So I went into the careers guidance service to work with young people to be that careers advisor I never had. So that wounds into wisdom. So my wounds turn into wisdom. And the wounds into wisdom is really, really powerful, which are part of our soul retrieval, part of us alchemizing intergenerational trauma and being the ancestor that our ancestors have been waiting for, so that we can shapeshift and literally change the trajectory for our next generations to come. That's how powerful we are. So that's there in the space. And then the vision, working with I worked for a year doing psychometric tests for the university with people, with adults who wanted to do a major career change. That was my first careers guidance counseling. And then and I didn't want to really work with adults. I wanted to work with young people. I did. And then work with young people and students with diversity, special needs, all these marginalized groups, which really helped me in that way. And I thought I'd stay in careers forever, but I wanted so much to work with more and more of the marginalized groups. And I wanted to work with women in domestic violence, because that was something that was hugely a big part of what I knew I'd come for. So I went back to university, retrained, got my degree in social work, and then moved into social work. And I worked in education, in health, and in social services. And then I left to set up my own practice. So, and that's when my other journey, then this and this. And then I'm now, teaching women and doing the online courses that I do to teach everything that we learn into the programs. And that's what we do. So, and my vision is still not complete. I'm only 57. I don't know what my vision is going to be in 10 years time, in 20 years time. And I say that because we can get so fixed sometimes in having a vision, and it's got to look like one thing. And yes, we can have a North Star, a purpose, but enjoying the journey and picking up those little different pieces of us that help to crystallize the next iteration of our vision. And as a wise elder once said to me, your vision is like a kaleidoscope. It changes all the time. As you grow and you evolve, your vision has to grow and evolve as well. So that was a nice metaphor.
That's a beautiful visual way of saying, you know, we can have this, you know, path, but the path can change. And you know, that's okay. And I can completely relate to your story there. And I'm sure women watching this can also relate. And I think there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves in this very patriarchal world of push, push, push. We've got to be there now. We've got to have this end goal, and that's it.
Yeah.
And actually stepping back and having that ability to have self-compassion and go, okay, well, I'm going to step more into my feminine and just flow and go with what's working for me right now, trusting my body, trusting my intuition, trusting my own guidance. And that will lead us to what we're ultimately meant to do.
Yeah.
And I think it really is all about that journey. So that's such a beautiful message that you've just given us, which I need to get a lot of the time. I want to be here now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And we have our ancestors to help us. You know, we really do. And in the the way that this beautiful group of collective ancestors and communicate with me, and as a shamanic practitioner, we are encouraged to right from the get-go to connect with the unseen realms. Excuse me, we can call those the 5-dimensional and beyond. Anything that we are using our 5 senses for in the shamanic practicing world, it's everything else. The real truth is anything that isn't part of our 5D world, our 5 sense world. So if we can see it, smell it, touch it, taste it, and hear it, then it's got to be true, right? So it takes enormous trust to believe that, well, what if none of that, and all the invisibility in what we call space, what if that is filled with something else? What if that is just alive, not just with gravity, but alive with an intelligence that wants nothing more than for us to find ourselves in that benevolent place, that true legacy, that true, thriving and juiciness of the life that we came here to lead. So, and with the ancestors, I want to introduce your ladies here to 2 ways of calling through ancestors. One way is to call through ancestors, the healed ancestors. And for most of us, we would only be able to cognitively think of either a parent, a grandparent, or a great-grandparent. And we probably wouldn't go further back than that in our cognitive ability. But in our healed ancestors, going all the way through that matriarchal and patriarchal line, there are phenomenal ancestors that have walked on this earth, that are part of our bloodline, that are waiting to be called forth to help us, because they also know that with the stories that were tipped inside of us, the beliefs that we were given, that this map of the world that somebody else gave us, how, why we've got the fear of this, I'm scared of what people will think, or who am I to think I can do this, and all of those different patterns that we can see very clearly in the people that brought us into this world, birth parents. And even if we had carers who weren't our birth parents, we would adopt and adapt their behavioral infrastructure, as we know, as a child. And if we don't know who our birth parents are, we can still call in our ancestors, and they will come, because they know exactly who you are, those healed ancestors. So when we call ancestors in, I always ask us to call in the healed ancestors, the ones that really had an imprint, the part of their soul has stayed behind on this earth to wait for us to call on them to help us in this lifetime, especially through these unprecedented times in this decade. This is the most powerful decade for women in our entire history. And many have called it the decade of Sophia, the uprising of the feminine, the uprising of woman. There also is our ancient ancestors, and our ancient ancestors we would know them in the mountains, or the trees, or the sunlight, or the starlight. We came from the stars, this huge planet was a huge eruption. So the ancient ancestors that also embedded themselves into this earth. Mother Earth is our ultimate ancient mother, our ancient ancestor. And when we call on these ancient beings, the wisdom of how they have been here billions of years on this earth, and they know what our humanity is dealing with and facing, and they know how we can tap into the ancient wisdom to wake up to a deeper awakening of these what I call medicines inside of us, that we were literally given also through our generation. So it's not just intergenerational trauma, it's not just wounding, it's not just, you know, the moon medicine stuff, the shadow. It's also the gifts that we were given, these intrinsic gifts of how to kind of like, wow, I've got this incredible gift of kindness. I've got some, I can't stop being so generous. I love the planet. I love animals. I love children. I just love people. Oh my God, I'm an artist. Oh my God, I can create these things. My creativity, all of these gifts came also through our ancestral lines. And so when we call on our ancestors, they can ignite the literally the codings that are inside the blueprint that we've got, to ignite those codings, to amplify what either we already know about ourselves. It's like, you know, I want more of this, more of this incredible medicine that I know I carry to help me through these next days, these next weeks, these next years of my life. Call on ancestors when we're having a really hard time, to help us not go down in an old, very old ancestral wounding, especially the wounding of the victim, which is deeply intrinsic in our ancestral line for all of us. So when we can call on those ancestors, they're real. They are here to help us. And we've been calling on angels and ascended masters and God for, you know, forever, for thousands of years. And our ancestors are kind of like, hey, we're also here. You can call on us. And if you had a parent or a grandparent that you had a beautiful, strong connection with, then that I would always start with that as a starting point. Call on that ancestor. You know, it could be an aunt, it could be an uncle, it could be a sibling that passed over that you were super close with, that had a lot of love for you. Call on that beloved, because that one will be the one that will open the portal to connect us with our ancestors. And we have an offer for your sisters as well for tomorrow night. So you can speak a little bit about that, Lizzie.
Absolutely. And that is just so juicy. And I feel really important to recognize that, yes, there's a lot of talk about bringing traumas through generations and kind of the negative stuff. And I kind of had that experience of being like, oh, damn you. why did you have that story? Like, why did you bring that to me? I don't like that. But actually, it's really beautiful to be able to go thank you and recognize the light, recognize the sun medicine, as well as the moon medicine.
Yes.
Beautifully describe it. And so I love that tip of being, the first step is actually connecting with one of your ancestors who you know had a strong connection with you. But I would love for you to talk a little bit more about your ancestral breathwork journeys, which I know you have a special invitation for our ladies, and how that can really amplify the experience of connecting with our ancestors. I invite you to have those.
Thank
I
you.
have been a part of your ancestral breathwork journey.
Well, say a little bit for you, Lizzie, because they know, like, and trust you already. You're their teacher. So say a little bit what that was for you before I say what it is.
Sand began these about a month ago. Is that correct?
The breathwork journeys are about 4 years in iteration, but we opened them to the public again just over a month ago. Yeah.
Right. So I did my first one with you last month, and you do them twice a month.
Yeah, it was more about, sorry, it's not about, I can cover that.
Okay.
Your experience. I was pointing to, your experience.
So it's just such a beautiful way of slowing down and tapping into that intuition and that guidance. Okay. So when I was going through the breathwork journey, I got this sense of opening and inner peace, because as I mentioned before, for a while I'd had this kind of almost anger and frustration towards my ancestors of, you know, why why did you do that? Why did you do that? And so it was a very peaceful experience for me, because I was able to start to bring in some of that gratitude and say thank you. Because in saying, well, you're doing this to me, why me? I was going into that victimhood, and so shutting off that guidance. So in enabling myself through the breath work to connect to my ancestors and create gratitude and say, actually, I want to know about you. I don't want to put you on one side and me on the other. It created this opening to have more of an intuitive feel. And this is why more and more I'm talking about stepping into that and stepping into the feminine and actually allowing and letting go as well as letting in. And that created a really nice container for me to be able to do that. So thank you. That is my experience.
Thank you, Lizzie. To give the overview, that we were guided, I was guided to bring the breathwork back out, because we'd put them inside of the programs, and the ancestors kind of knocking on the door saying, okay, it's time now to bring them back out of the programs and bring them in back out into the public, which I'm thrilled about, like just delighted about. And then waiting for the guidance of how are we going to move with this. So waiting for that intuition, meditation, doing my drumming, what is it going to look like, and getting truly the partnership of the ancestors, because it's when it comes through that way, it's so much more powerful than what Sand has got to say about it. So they wanted it to be under the moons. They said we want to have these journeys now under the new moon and the full moon of each month. And that's beautiful, because cyclically, obviously, being in the moon cycle for woman, the new moon of like, what am I planting? What am I wanting for my life here? Planting new seeds, new growth. And then the full moon, what am I releasing in order to have this manifestation of my dreams and my desires come into this 3D world, come and be manifest here. So that was the first one, so under the moons. And so we've got 3 powerhouses. We've got breath, your very breath, which is the best superpower you could ever imagine having, because if you didn't have it, we wouldn't be here. So we've got the breath, we have ancestors, and we've got the moon, we've got Mama Luna. So those 3 powerhouses, how perfect to do a breathwork journey, and to do it, as consecutively as a woman can, to be moving through whatever's moving through in her life and to claim these pieces. So the breath, and for breath work, for sisters that may know about it or not, when we breathe in a particular way, we literally can send ourselves into a very deep trance-like state, in which we can get access to either in deep sleep, or deep meditation, or or plant medicines can take us there, some kind of like beautiful medicine of choice that can literally get us out of our mind. That's the point. It's like, get us out of this logical brain of ours that also talks us into things and talks us out to things at the same time. So, but when we breathe, we are moving. We have the 3 brains, the 3 areas of our brain. So when we start to do breath work, we literally are forcing oxygen to move in the body in a particular way, which we deoxygenize the brain, which is beautiful and totally safe, in order to be able to switch that off and ignite the intuition, ignite the instead of the left part of the brain that wants to figure everything out, we ignite the right side of the brain, which is the right side is all about our intuition and our dreams and our desires. So we tap into that, and in a very powerful way. I play music to take us on that journey. I've been working with music for over 3 decades, probably 4 decades now. I've been making playlists since I was a young teenager, and music is a big medicine of mine. So I curate a playlist under each of the moons for that particular moon, and for how we're going to take the sisters, the women, through that journey. And also my ancestors are very heavily involved in the curating of the playlist as well. And we breathe in a particular way, where, as I said, so that we pull in the intention for that journey. Like, what do we want for our life at that moment? I'm calling forth a loved one. I'm calling forth more clarity. I want more courage to make this decision at work. I want more boldness for setting out on, having my own company. I want to get more clarity because my mind is so foggy or I want healing. My life right now, there's deep healing that I need. So it's healing or insights or guidance that anyone can come into this journey for. And as we journey with the breath, we get into breath work pretty quickly, because within 2 tracks we can move into this space, and so it's pretty quickly. And then as we are filling our body with our intention, we ask our ancestors to come in and help us to remove or certainly dissolve, alchemize, transcend any of the blocks that are stopping us from actually having this full intention, or having our full desire. So when the ancestors come in, even if we think we know what the block is, it'd be like, it's my procrastinator, it's my saboteur, it's my body gets in the way, my husband gets in the way, my dog gets in the way, whatever we think it is that gets in the way. And that's good to have that mental process. But when we bring in the ancestors at that point, it's way beyond that. And what we're working with then is an intergenerational wounding that's being pulled out through your breath. All that you're doing is breathing and listening to great music. And me and your ancestors are doing the rest of the work, pulling through anything that is going to stop you from having this desire fully manifest in this place. And then we towards the end, so asking the ancestors, what are the next steps that you need to take? The very next step. And then the insights and the downloads can come, or a feeling like you had, Lizzie, you had this incredible peace. Because if we are still blaming, whether it's our ancestors, our dog, cat, husband, wife, brother, sister, mother, father, while we're in a blaming culture, and we all are, we're deeply intrinsically wired for that. While we're blaming something, there's a contraction in our field, and the very thing that we're here to manifest can't get through. So it's like a hose pipe. Somebody's tied a knot in our hose pipe and the water can't get through. So breath work is a place where we're untying the knots in the hose pipe, so your life force can move more fully and powerfully through. And we've had the most off the charts. We've had women walking away from substance misuse. We've had women walking away from a 30-year eating disorder. We've had women walking away who found the love of her life in Whole Foods 2 weeks later. We've had women that have built deep bonding relationship with the mother who she thought she would never speak to. We've had women walking away with deep and honest and very difficult conversations in cultural families where they're outing the brother, the masculine in the house. So it's been so many different ways. So it's a powerful, and we're there for, we come in for 90 minutes, but the breath work is 25 minutes. And in 25 minutes, you can shapeshift your life in 25 minutes, as long as you follow the action of the next steps that your guide did. If you didn't quite hear it the first time, then come back 2-3 times, and you'll start to move through very, very powerfully. So, and it's our gift to you all for being on this course with Lizzie. So
how do they access this incredible gift?
We're going to give you a code, Lizzie. So if I drop it here in the chat, there we go. And it is capital letters. So if is it capitals? It is. That's that one. And
we'll share that as well in the Facebook group, in the Reclaim the Rebel Academy Facebook group, and also the email. So make sure that gets to the lovely ladies. And the time and date is tomorrow at
6 p.m. Pacific time. And let me just go in, just give you the link as well, Lizzie, for the journeys.
Yeah, so if you head to the website that
there you go.
Post in the chat, and I will also put this in email and in the Facebook group, then you can put the code in and you can get the journey as Sand's gift to you.
For being in Lizzie's program, for being this is what I wanted to say. These things happen. There's a little nudge here, a little gift here, a validation here. So for being a woman that said yes to this program with Lizzie, then those women that, let's keep supporting women that are saying yes to her life. Let's supporting women who are saying yes to make some deep rooted changes. So that's why I wanted to be on this call with Lizzie today and offer this gift and some, hopefully some wisdom, some insights, and some tools of being able to work with your ancestors. And this is just close your eyes and call forth an ancestor, and that is you working with your ancestors right from the very first moment.
It's so incredible, and I just want to say on behalf of the ladies watching this, thank you for your time and for your gifts. You are so appreciated. So thank you, Sand.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to hearing how the breathwork journey goes tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And
Yes,
Sand will also be in our Cheer Squad Facebook group at the end of June. So more info on that coming. In the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much again.
Thank you, Lizzie. And thank you to all your sisters in this program. Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm going to drop off now. And I hope to see you, Miss Lizzie, tomorrow night. I know you've got a wedding that you are getting ready for, and you've got a whole thing. So massive congratulations on your upcoming wedding. What a beauty. That's a sacred moment to call in ancestors for that sacred union, to bring them in, bring your matriarchal line in through your left side and the patriarchal line in for all of the ancestors, the healed ancestors and ancient ancestors that will support you in this journey of the masculine and the feminine in this sacred union between you and your husband. Call them in right from the beginning in that ceremony.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow night.
Okay, my darling. Bye, love. Bye, everyone.